Meeting with dissolution, when passion prevails, it is born amongst those attached to action, and if it is dissolved when dullness prevails, it is born in the wombs of the deluded. If the mode of rajas, passion prevails, at the time of death, then one is born amongst those who are attached to action. This means that such a person is born amongst humans. This is because karma is only the right of human beings. Shri Krishna said in the 47th verse of chapter 2 of the Gita that Karmanya adhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. You have a right only to karmas, actions, and never to their fruits. Animals do not perform karmas. They just keep doing what is part of their nature. You cannot call this karma. Karma is a technical word of the Gita. Karma yoga, the yoga of karmas, is a technical phrase of the Gita. The reason behind the action becomes important. If one has a wish for the consequences, then they become important, and the means by which performs the actions becomes important. All of this becomes necessary. The path you have chosen in which to perform karma also becomes important. Karma is a technical word. Karma is not just work. Karma is not just action. This is a whole scripture of karma yoga, the yoga of karmas, and we say at the end of each chapter that karma yoga shastra, it is a scripture about the yoga of karmas. The Gita talks about karma yoga, the yoga of karmas. Only human beings perform karma. Everybody else only experiences the consequences of karma. The gods, the deities, also experience the consequences of karma, and animals also experience the consequences of karma. If one has performed satkarma, divine acts, then they have to experience the karma of them in the body of a dev, a deity, and if one has performed wrong acts, then they have to experience the karma of them in an animal's body. Human beings perform karma, earn karma, and save themselves from karma. All other bodies only use karma and do not save themselves from karma. They have to use up the karma that they have incurred. That is why the human body is very necessary. A person who has remained in the mode of rajas, passion, is constantly thinking about karma and becomes bound only because of the attachment of karma, and therefore it is natural that these thoughts are constantly running in his mind, and he would therefore attain a body in which he can perform karma. He is therefore born as a human being. And if the mode of dullness prevails at the time of death, then the person is born in the wombs of the deluded, such as animals, birds, insects, and such bodies. We must understand something about the mode of rajas, passion, and the fact that we are human beings confirms three things. We will speak a little about past births. It's a very popular topic, and I know it's not possible to answer each and every question that people have sitting on the Vyaspit, because I know that when I answer one thing, then 10 new questions will arise in your minds. This is because the subject is like that. If we have 4 or 5 hours of time in peace and the mind is ready to accept something, then it's not as if the entire subject will be solved. The topic of past births is a topic of just seeing and a topic of experiencing. You do not get the answer to your questions just by talking, such is my experience until now. Yet, bearing in mind that certain topics can enlighten people and can begin thinking in people's minds, I'm going to talk about this for a little now. From the fact that we've been born as human beings, what must our previous births been like? It is possible that we may come here having been promoted from an animal body. This is one possibility. It is one possibility that having been through 8.4 million bodies, we've been born as human beings, because there's 8.4 million different types of creatures. The second possibility is such that we may have been human beings in our last birth, and we have become human beings in this birth. This means that in our last birth, we were of the mode of rajas, passion, and in our last birth, at the time of death, the mode of rajas, passion prevailed. And that is why we've been born out of the mode of rajas, passion again in this birth, and we've been born as human beings. This is the second possibility. And if I were to say it percentage-wise, then this is the biggest percentage of all. Some people have said that the possibility of coming to a human body, having been promoted, is like a 10% possibility, and there is an 89.9% possibility that we were human beings in our past births, and we were of the mode of rajas, passion. Because the majority of human beings are of the mode of rajas, and they are attached to karmas. At the time of death, they must have had the thought that mode of nature must have prevailed, so that they've been born once again as human beings. And the third possibility is that in a past birth, we're in the body of a dev, a deity, and the punya, the opposite of sin, karma, that we have performed in many of our past lives were used up so that we came back into the world of humans. Shine punya martalokam vishanti, they enter, they return to the world of the mortals. We may have used up all our punya and fell down from a dev, a deity body, to be born as human beings. Therefore, there are three ways of attaining a human birth. The first is from developing from an animal body to a human body. Second is being a human body and retaining a human body, and in the next birth. And third, from falling down from a dev, a deity body, to be born as a human being. But one thing is certain, that we are now human beings, we're studying the Gita, and we learn about all of this. Now it's in our hands how we wish our next birth to be. And from learning about the modes of nature, that human beings learn about what they must have been in their past births. If a human being who has been promoted from an animal body in his last birth, then this means that the human being did not have much of the modes of sattva, goodness, or the mode of rajas, passion. Because of the grace of God, the cycle of the world was running, and they came into a human body because of this. They had none of their own contribution in this. They came merely as a part of the cycle of the world. The question arises that how do the people who get promoted from an animal body to a human body arrive having become promoted? Two things are there in this. This can be explained in a very nice way. Those who have seen conveyor belts or escalators will know that if we're on a conveyor belt or escalator, then there can be three states in this. What the majority of people do is that while the belt is moving, they're standing there. Some other people are such that the belt is running and they're also moving with the belt. They can reach there quicker. And a third type of people are such that in order to pass time or in order to have fun, the belt is moving in one direction and they're moving in the opposite direction. There can be also such people. In this body it's like this. What is a human body? The escalator is moving and one is standing on the escalator. Or someone who has progressed from an animal body to a human body is like this. I've just recently thought of an example and therefore I've not done much analysis of this. Those who are standing on a belt or standing on the escalator are progressing upwards as animals. This is a machine and this is a system, and they are part of the system because once you ride on the escalator, then you become part and parcel of the system. If you're not doing anything and are just standing there, then you can place a rock on the escalator, you're just standing on the escalator, and in the same way, there is an escalator of the world where the cycle or development is running. From this, one can come into a human birth. And once one gets a human birth, then the rite begins. Once one has got off from the level of human beings, then the rite begins. Now they have the independence to perform karmas, to have wishes, and to have the rights to the fruits of karmas they have performed. When they were in an animal body, then there were no karmas, and they did not have the rights to the fruit of karmas. If we were buffaloes and had killed someone using our horns, then nobody could punish us. Or it could not be written in one of Chitragupta's books. If we were born in a snake body and had bitten someone, then we could not get the punishment of killing someone. This cannot happen. This is because there were no karmas and there were no fruits. We were doing whatever we were instinctively. But when we come into the cycle as human beings, our rights begin. With rights beginning, duties also began and responsibilities also began. It is therefore possible that this may be our first human birth. It is not in the majority of cases, and it is certainly not in the case of anyone listening to this discourse. But how can one find out if this is their first human birth? The way of finding this out is that there is a blank slate. And if I were to say in another way, then there's a prevalence of the mode of dullness in them. They have innocence in them, and this is certain, but they have a prevalence of the mode of dullness in them. Just like animals, they eat, drink, and lie there. Those who are like all of this, or those who like only material enjoyments, may possibly be those who have been promoted from an animal body to a human body. Ahara nidya bhayamaitanancha samanineta pashubhinamanam. Even a crow has two legs. Even a crow sleeps. Even a crow eats. And even a crow reproduces. Therefore, it is not right to say that someone who has 2 feet is a human being. When all of this is running, then there's a possibility that this is their first birth as human beings. But if some human beings are constantly performing activities and are constantly active, then there's a possibility that they were human beings in the last birth and have become human beings in this birth. And if they are descendants of divinity and have the mode of sattva, goodness in them, then it is likely that they are either developing as human beings, or in their last birth they came from a dev god body and have come to the world of humans having used up their punya, the opposite of sins. We say in Gujarati that bolo parelo or patako, that a person came from the heavenly abode to earth. And this person is like this. This individual may have come from swarg, heaven to earth. The Gita uses the word yoga brashta for this. And this is a being that is developing. Shri Krishna said in the 6th chapter of the Gita that Suchinam Srimatam Gehe Yoga Brasho Abhichayate Atava Yoginam Eva Kula Bhavati Dhimatam. The man who has fallen away from yoga is again born in a house of such who are pure and prosperous, or he may be born in a family of yogis who are endowed with wisdom. I will say it again that this is not exhaustive and this is not all explaining, and the reason why it's not is because it cannot be exhaustive in all explaining. But you can do a general thing where if each and every person sits down quietly and thinks about their life, then they can realize what path they are on. And when one realizes what path they're on, then they'll know how they can develop further on it. One can realize that they can go from the wrong path to the right path, and they know how to develop further. Therefore, the human being themselves should think about this. And this principle of karma is such that it comes through experience. The second question, in relation to what Shri Krishna says, is that if the mode of dullness prevails at the time of death, then the person is born in the wombs of the deluded, such as animals, birds, insects, and such bodies. Therefore, this is something to do with the future. One does not have to go through this now, but who knows if one has to go through this in the future if the mode of dullness prevails in them at the time of death. This is because the fact that we are human beings means that we did not have this mode of nature prevailing at the time of death in our previous lives. But a person who has the mode of dullness prevailing in them at the time of death is born in the wombs of the deluded. Over here, many people have the question, a lot of conversations take place on the subject by spiritualists and wise people. The question is whether the demotion of beings is possible. If we've been born as human beings once, then is it possible to go to animal bodies again? And there is a sect of people who say that people cannot go back again to animal bodies, that once people are born as human beings, then they will only be born as human beings in the future, and that demotion is not possible. And these people give an argument for it that if the development of the consciousness has taken place, then that consciousness cannot become degraded once again. While giving an example, they explain that if a pupil passes his metric exams, then the pupil does not have to sit again in his previous grade. He passes metric exams and therefore he cannot be demoted. In the same way, we have passed through body after body and have come here as human beings. This means that we have gone through all the previous grades. And because we have done them, we do not have to go through an insect, horse, elephant, dog, etc. body again. If we look at it one way, then there is logic in this, and this is their argument, but this argument is not true. The reason for this is that there is something inherent inside this, that if a human being only remains a human being, then there's so many examples contradicting this in the scriptures. I'll say just a few examples. In the 5th canto of the Srimad Bhagavad, there is a story of Bharatji. He remembered a deer in his last moments, and therefore his next birth was the body of a deer. In the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavad, the sons of Kuber, who are Nalkubar and Maniguru, were intoxicated. They made fun of a wise and knowledgeable saint by the name of Naradji. Naradji gave them a curse that they will be born in tree bodies, and were both born in bodies of trees. Then Sri Krishna liberated them. So many examples can be found in the scriptures. What about these? Therefore devotion can take place. This is what the scriptures and the principles say. Those arguments can perhaps allure and attract people, and perhaps we like to believe it because there is security for us in it. We like to believe that when we die, then whatever is going to happen will happen, but at least now we will not go anywhere. We want to buy the argument, and we tend to buy the argument, but that argument is deadly because it makes a person negligent. A person mistakenly thinks that I have a human body and I cannot become demoted from a human body. This actually makes a person negligent, and that's why it's deadly. The reality is that one can become demoted, and if you wish to give an argument for this, then you can give one that for God everyone is the same. When the soul is choosing its next birth or choosing its next body, then at that time, the soul only remembers its karmas. It does not know anything else. And according to that, it takes a body. It does not make a difference. If the mode of dullness prevails at the time of death, then the person is born in the wombs of the deluded. Now we have to decide what we were like before, and now what we're going to become. Shri Krishna has identified both these things for us in this verse.